Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to preview the season of the Indianapolis Colts, and we're going to talk about how they're going to bounce back from that very disappointing way to finish the season, losing in Jacksonville with their season on the line in Week 18. And we're going to talk about all their off-season additions and subtractions, so let's talk about it. The Colts brought in Gus Bradley at defensive coordinator after Matt Eberflus left for Chicago to be their head coach. And what you need to know about Bradley is that he likes to run a lot of three safety plays, which will help the Colts early on in the season because Shaquille Leonard, no longer named Darius, Shaquille Leonard, he will be out for some time, recovering from surgery he had in the offseason, so they will be thin at linebacker, but they still have some good linebackers such as Bobby Okereke and Zaire Franklin. But at safety, at free safety, they'll have Julian Blackmon. At strong safety, they will rotate with Nick Cross and Rodney McLeod. I think those are some really good options. Now let's talk about the obvious change, which is that Carson Wentz was traded to the Washington Commanders in exchange for a third-round pick, which I think that is good value for a guy like Carson Wentz, who isn't a very good leader and is at times very inaccurate with the ball and makes poor decisions. On the other hand, the Colts would trade another third-round pick to Atlanta to get quarterback Matt Ryan. Now, Matt Ryan is 37 years old, and he's coming off a season where he threw 20 touchdowns along with 12 interceptions. And Matt Ryan, those numbers don't do justice for him, considering that his best pass catcher was Kyle Pitts, which is pretty solid, but Calvin Ridley was out for most of the year, and his best receiver was Russell Gage. So those numbers don't really do him justice, and he was playing behind a terrible offensive line, and he did not have much time to release the ball. So Matt Ryan, I think he'll definitely improve in this new system. I think he could easily have a 30 touchdown year, and like I said about Wentz earlier, he's not a good leader. Matt Ryan is an amazing leader, and I expect him to take this team to new levels. The Colts needed a pass rusher, and they got that in the trade market, trading Rocky Ya-Sin to the Las Vegas Raiders in exchange for Yannick Ngakoue. And Ngakoue had 10 sacks last season, and although he's not great at stopping the run, he's great at getting to the quarterback and creating pressure. I think with him and Kwity Paye as a very lethal duo in the pass rush, I think that can be great, especially if Kwity Paye can develop, as Kwity Paye only had 4 sacks last season in 15 starts, but I think he will definitely make that year 2 jump. The Colts needed a new corner after Rocky Ya-Sin was traded to the Raiders, and they did that by signing Stefan Gilmore from the Panthers. And this was a huge move considering Stefan Gilmore, despite entering his age 32 season, is a top 5 corner and is just the X factor the Colts needed in this secondary, and he will definitely play a huge role in this team's success. And you pair him with Kenny Moore and Isaiah Rodgers and Brandon Facyson, I think this is a great secondary that is very slept on, and they'll have Stefan Gilmore for the next 2 seasons, so look out for that. The Colts would also make a few more minor moves, as they would bring in Nick Foles to be the backup quarterback, and this is a great move considering Nick Foles has the Frank Reich connection from Philadelphia. They would also bring in Philip Lindsay to be the backup running back for Jonathan Taylor, and Philip Lindsay is a 2-time 1,000-yard rusher, so maybe he can take a little bit of pressure off of Jonathan Taylor, but unless Jonathan Taylor gets injured, I doubt Philip Lindsay plays a huge role in this offense. Now, the rookies that I'm looking at that can make a huge impact on this team this year are Alec Pierce, the wide receiver from Cincinnati. Considering the Colts lost a lot of receivers in free agency, I think Alec Pierce is really Matt Ryan's number 2 guy at wide receiver behind Michael Pittman Jr. Also, Jelani Woods, tight end from Virginia. Him and Mo Alley-Cox are a great tight end duo in my opinion. But also the Colts have Andrew Ogletree at tight end as well. So in case Jelani Woods doesn't develop, they got Ogletree. Also Nick Cross at strong safety, who I mentioned earlier. He's looked great in camp. He's very fast. I think he's the steal of the draft. And another player I wanted to talk about was Bernhard Raymond at left tackle. Eric Fisher was terrible last season. Matt Pryor was a decent replacement for him. But Bernhard Raymond is the future of left tackle, even though he might have to sit behind Matt Pryor for a little bit this season. The Colts also lost a lot of key pieces. On the offensive line, first off, they lost Eric Fisher, which, thank God, he's terrible. But they lost some good guards in Mark Lewinsky and Chris Reed in free agency, which I think will be a big blow. But at the same time, Danny Pinter, who subbed in for Ryan Kelly at center this year, I think he will be a great replacement at that right guard position. Also, on the offensive side, T.Y. Hilton is still unsigned, and if he doesn't re-sign with the Colts, this is a huge blow considering that even though he hasn't been healthy the past few years, he is still great for this receiving room. A lot of young guys in that receiving room. They also lost Zach Pascal at wide receiver as he signed with Philadelphia, and Jack Doyle would leave as he would retire, which opens up more opportunities for Jelani Woods, Kylan Granson, Mo Alley Cox, and Andrew Ogletree. On the defensive side of things, they would lose strong safety Kari Willis as he retired, which was very shocking considering that he was really on the come up, and at the same time he was very young, and he really didn't have any injury concern, so this was very shocking. In the pass rush, they would lose Al-Quini Muhammad, but they replaced him with Yannick Ngakoue, so that's a huge upgrade getting Yannick Ngakoue. And like I mentioned earlier, the Colts would trade Rocky Yassin to Las Vegas, but they clearly upgraded by bringing in Stefan Gilmore. Now, some players that will have huge seasons for the Colts this year. Jonathan Taylor, of course, if he stays healthy, he's going to be the same beast that he was last year. He is the best running back in football, without a doubt, in my opinion. Michael Pittman Jr. at wide receiver, he is really the lone target there. And I think him and Matt Ryan are going to be a lethal duo. And I expect Pittman to be a 1,000-yard receiver again. Maybe even an all-pro, but that might be reaching a little bit. Also at wide receiver, Alec Pierce. Would not be surprised if he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. On the offensive line, Quentin Nelson, I think he's going to prove that he is the best lineman in the NFL once again because he struggled with injuries last season, and he'll be first-team All-Pro if he stays healthy. On the other side, Ryan Kelly, I think if he stays healthy, he will be the best center in the NFL this year, which might be a hot take. But I think Ryan Kelly will cement himself as the best center in the NFL. On the defensive side of things, I expect Kenny Moore to have a great season considering that he is playing for a new contract, which almost had him sitting out of training camp, but still he decided to go through training camp anyway. Yannick Ngakoue will have 10 plus sacks. Also, Kwity Paye will have a breakout season, I guarantee it. Kwity Paye had 4 sacks last season, but he will make that second-year jump, and he will be a huge piece for this Colts team. Same thing with another second-year guy, Dayo Adingbo. I don't think he'll quite have 10 sacks, but he will be great at stopping the run. Same thing with DeForest Buckner. You all know what DeForest Buckner can do. He's an all-pro, and he'll just do it again. And Nick Cross, strong safety, I think he is a sleeper for Defensive Rookie of the Year, and he's really shown how great he's been in camp. Also, how could I forget about Shaquille Leonard, who is, in my opinion, the best linebacker in the NFL, and is the leader of this defense, and arguably the leader of this team. When he comes back from injury, which will be around week 5 or week 6, he will be a great help for them. Also, Julian Blackmon at free safety, I think he will have a breakout season. He's coming off an Achilles tear, but at the same time, he's looked great in training camp, and he will pick up where he left off as being one of the best young safeties in the league. And also Stefan Gilmore, like I mentioned earlier, if he stays healthy, will pick up where he left off in Carolina and will have a Pro Bowl level season. Also expect Nyheim Hines to have a great season at running back because they'll use him as a slot receiver. But this all comes down to Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan will have a great season in my opinion because he has all the tools to be successful. A great offensive line, some really good young receivers that are being slept on, like Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Paris Campbell, if healthy, and Ashton Dulin, which no one really talks about him. And I think Matt Ryan can make his receivers better, and when called upon, he will be great, because I expect this still to be a run-first offense with Jonathan Taylor leading the way. Now, my final predictions for the team's record. I think the Colts will have a top 5 defense and a top 15 offense, and this will help them win the AFC South for the first time since 2014, as the Titans are kind of on the decline, and the Colts will finish 11-6 and will make the divisional round before being eliminated, but still, this will be a huge building block for them. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.